Chosen ones, you'll keep losing energy until you break these 7 dark cycles. What if I told you that the reason you feel so tired isn't just because you've been working hard, or because life has been unfair, or because you're not doing enough spiritual practices? What if the real reason you feel so drained, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, is because you're unknowingly trapped in 7 dark cycles that are draining your life force every single day, and not just draining your energy in the moment, but sabotaging your evolution, your destiny, and your ability to fully embody the power you were born with? If you're a chosen one, and trust me, if you're watching this, you are, then these cycles are especially targeted at you. Why? Because your energy is potent, your light is disruptive. You were built not just to survive this world, but to transform it. And anything that threatens the old systems, the unconscious programs, the spiritual stagnation of the collective, is going to be challenged. You are that challenge. And these 7 dark cycles are the system's way of keeping you small, distracted, and exhausted, without you even realizing it. I didn't realize it at first either. I thought exhaustion was just part of the path. I thought emotional collapse was a sign of humility. I thought spiritual burnout was normal, until I started noticing the patterns, the cycles, the moments of breakthrough followed by complete energetic crash, the seasons of high vibration and clarity followed by deep confusion, loneliness, and doubt. It wasn't random, it was rhythmic, intentional, designed. And if you're honest, you've felt the same thing. You've had moments of awakening where everything made sense, where your power surged, where your vision was clear, and then, out of nowhere, you spiraled. You lost momentum, you forgot, you went back into old habits, old relationships, old fears. That's not because you're weak, it's because you're caught in invisible loops that feed off your energy, and until you break them, they will keep resetting your progress.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first dark cycle is the cycle of over-responsibility. This one is incredibly subtle. It starts with your empathy, your compassion, your deep desire to help others. You see someone in pain and your soul moves. You feel called to hold space, to heal, to guide. But slowly that calling turns into a compulsion. You start carrying other people's burdens as if they're your own. You start solving problems that aren't yours to solve. You start believing that if you don't help, no one will. And that's when the energy leak begins. You don't realize it, but your boundaries begin to blur. Your nervous system starts to carry the weight of other people's trauma. And your life force, your creative, intuitive, radiant energy starts to get hijacked. You wake up tired. You feel heavy after conversations. You start losing yourself in other people's pain. And that's not service, that's sacrifice. You were never meant to carry it all. You were meant to channel light, not absorb darkness. So ask yourself honestly, where have I taken responsibility for things that are not mine to carry? The second dark cycle is the loop of self-doubt, and this one is engineered. Every chosen one I've ever encountered has gone through periods of intense doubt, not because they lack clarity, but because their clarity threatens the collective illusion, and the moment you begin to see clearly, the system pushes back. Energetically, psychologically, people around you start questioning your vision. You start attracting resistance, and instead of anchoring deeper into your truth, you start questioning it. You start minimizing your power, second-guessing your intuition, watering down your message. This isn't just insecurity, it's spiritual warfare. It's a direct attack on your alignment. Because if they can make you doubt your voice, they don't have to silence it. You'll do it yourself. And here's the dangerous part. Doubt doesn't always feel like fear. Sometimes it feels like logic, like being realistic, like taking the safe route. But the safe route for a chosen one is often the most dangerous because it keeps you from your purpose. So let me ask you this. When did you start believing that your inner knowing wasn't trustworthy? And who benefits from you staying unsure of yourself? The third cycle is emotional attachment to struggle. This one is hard to spot because we've normalized it. We've been conditioned to believe that struggle is noble, that suffering makes us worthy, that if we're not sacrificing, we're not spiritual. But that's a lie. You are not here to prove your worth through pain. You are not here to earn your rest, your joy, your freedom. But if you grew up in spiritual or religious environments that glorified hardship, you probably linked your identity to struggle. And now, when things start to go well, when ease enters your life, when peace becomes possible, you sabotage it. Not consciously, but energetically. You start attracting chaos. You start creating drama. You start feeling uncomfortable with stability. Because stability feels unfamiliar. We always return to what feels familiar, even if it's harmful. So I have to ask, what part of you is still loyal to pain? The fourth dark cycle is the pattern of energetic fragmentation. We live in a world of psychic overload. Notifications, comparisons, expectations. Every time you open your phone, you're being pulled into 1,000 frequencies that aren't yours. And if you're energetically sensitive, and if you're a chosen one, you definitely are, then you're absorbing more than you realize. Your energy becomes scattered, your focus becomes diluted. You start things but don't finish them. You feel inspired but can't move. You feel called to create but don't know where to begin. That's not laziness, it's fragmentation. Your energy is leaking into too many dimensions at once, and the only way to reclaim it is to ground deeply, daily, deliberately. You need spiritual practices that don't just feel good, but anchor you. And more than practices, you need presence. You need to call your energy back from every space it's been pulled into. So ask yourself, where have I given my energy without consent? And what would it take to call it all back? That's only 4. We still have 3 dark cycles left to break, but even with just these 4, I want you to feel what's happening in your body right now. The truth is vibrating. Your soul is remembering. These aren't ideas, these are keys. And once you see the cycles, you can't unsee them. You can only rise above them. But rising takes awareness. It takes discipline. It takes a level of self-honesty that most people run from. But you didn't come here to be most people. You came here to be you. Fully, unfiltered, unstoppable. The hidden contracts. Why your pain repeats until you rewrite these soul agreements. There's a secret most spiritual teachers won't tell you, not because they're hiding it, but because even they haven't fully seen it. The cycles we live in, especially the dark ones that keep draining our energy, are not accidental. They're not simply the result of trauma, bad luck, or poor choices. They are the manifestation of deep, often unconscious soul contracts. Agreements we made long before we were born, and until you become aware of those contracts and choose to rewrite them, your life will keep repeating the same pain, the same patterns, the same lessons, over and over again. I'm not talking about karma in the traditional sense. I'm talking about energetic agreements that your soul made, sometimes out of love, sometimes out of fear, sometimes out of necessity. Agreements like, I will never outshine others in order to stay safe, or I will carry the emotional weight of my family so they don't fall apart, or I will stay small so others can feel powerful around me. These contracts aren't written in words. They're etched into your energetic field. You act them out without realizing. You make decisions based on them. You attract people and situations that reflect them, and they become the blueprint for your suffering. The fifth dark cycle is rooted in this exact mechanism. It's the cycle of energetic servitude. Chosen ones fall into this trap because we're wired to serve. Our souls remember lifetimes of healing, of teaching, of guiding others through darkness. But somewhere along the way, many of us made a contract that said, I can only be valuable if I'm helping others. That sounds noble, but it becomes toxic when your worth is tied to your usefulness. You stop receiving, you stop resting, you stop allowing yourself to be supported, and suddenly your entire life becomes a mission, but not one that liberates you, one that enslaves you. And the worst part, you think you're doing the right thing. You think you're being spiritual, but you're just reenacting a contract that says your light only matters when it's shining on others. Let me ask you something deeply personal. Have you ever felt guilty for taking care of yourself? Have you ever apologized for needing space, for saying no, for not being available to someone else's pain? That's the contract speaking. That's the programming running. And the only way to break it is to rewrite it at the soul level. You must declare a new agreement. My value is inherent. My light matters even when no one is watching. I serve from overflow, not obligation. The sixth dark cycle is the loop of emotional abandonment. This one is vicious because it's internal. It's not about who hurt you, it's about how you learn to abandon yourself. Most chosen ones were never taught how to sit with their own emotions. We were told to be strong, to move on, to be the light. And so when sadness came, we pushed it down. When anger rose, we judged it. When fear appeared, we masked it with control. And over time, we created an identity that looked whole but was emotionally hollow. Now, every time a deep feeling rises, you disconnect. You analyze instead of feel. You spiritualize instead of sit with it. You try to transmute before you've even acknowledged. And that's the abandonment. That's the moment your energy leaks. Because emotions are not meant to be bypassed. They are messages, codes, portals, and when you ignore them, you block your evolution. Have you noticed how tired you get after an emotional trigger? Not because the event was huge, but because you resist what it brings up in you. That resistance is what drains you, not the feeling itself. The healing isn't in escaping the emotion, it's in staying with it long enough to hear what it's trying to teach you. So I challenge you. What emotion have you been avoiding that's actually the doorway to your next level of freedom? The seventh and final dark cycle is the illusion of isolation. This one is particularly brutal for chosen ones, because the more you awaken, the more you see, and the more you see, the harder it is to relate to people who are still asleep. You start feeling like a stranger in your own life. You start questioning whether you belong anywhere, and that loneliness, if not understood, becomes a silent killer. It begins to convince you that you're the problem, that maybe you're too intense, too deep, too much, and so you shrink, you hide, you dim your light just enough to fit in, or worse, you disappear altogether. But here's the truth, your loneliness is not proof that you're broken, it's proof that you're evolving. You're not meant to fit into the old world, you're meant to create a new one. And yes, that means walking through seasons of solitude, but solitude is not isolation, one is chosen. The other is a lie. You are not alone. You never have been. There are others like you scattered across the world feeling the same pull, asking the same questions, carrying the same flame. And when you stop pretending to be normal, when you stop hiding your gifts, that's when you begin to find them. Your soul family, your tribe, your mirror. So I ask you with full reverence, what are you still pretending not to know about your path just to feel less alone? And what would happen if you stopped waiting to be found and started choosing to be seen? These 7 dark cycles are not your punishment. They are your curriculum. They are the tests that, when passed, unlock the next dimension of your being. But passing them isn't about force. It's about awareness, presence, practice, and above all, choice. You can choose to break the cycle. You can choose to rewrite the contract. You can choose to answer the call that's been whispering your name for lifetimes. The Energy Reclamation Blueprint, how to seal your aura and rise into your highest frequency. What if I told you that your energy is leaking not just through your wounds, not just through your thoughts, but through the very fabric of your daily existence? Every interaction, every unspoken resentment, every ignored intuition, every time you say yes when your soul screams no, it all creates micro tears in your aura. And those tears are not metaphorical, they are real. Your aura, your energetic field, is your first line of spiritual protection. It's the container that holds your power, your clarity, your vibration. When it's strong, you feel grounded, clear, magnetic. But when it's weak, you feel scattered, drained, anxious, confused. The world begins to shape you instead of you shaping the world. You react instead of respond. You survive instead of create. Most people never learn how to guard their energy because they're taught to focus only on the physical. Eat better, sleep more, exercise, and yes, those things matter. But if you're a chosen one, your energy isn't drained by the physical. It's drained by the spiritual neglect. It's drained by being energetically open in places you're meant to be sovereign. This is why environments exhaust you, why certain people leave you feeling heavy, why you can be alone and still feel like you're carrying the weight of 1,000 voices. Your aura has been open, unsealed, and without conscious reclamation, you will continue to give your life force away to people, places, and programs that were never meant to hold it. So how do we reclaim our energy? How do we seal our aura? It begins with the most radical spiritual discipline of all, presence. You must start paying attention to where your energy goes, not just metaphorically, but literally. When you walk into a room, pause. Feel your body. Notice what contracts, what expands. When you speak to someone, ask yourself afterward, do I feel more alive or more exhausted? These are not casual reflections. These are diagnostics. Your body is speaking, your field is responding, but you have to listen. Then comes the audit, the energetic audit. Who in your life consistently pulls more than they pour? What habits are keeping you in a low vibration? What obligations are rooted in guilt instead of love? Where are you performing instead of embodying? These aren't easy questions, but they are essential, because every single one of those things is a tiny cord, a tether, a leak. And the more cords you carry, the less energy you have to channel into your purpose. The next step is spiritual hygiene. Just as you shower your body, you must cleanse your field daily. This isn't optional, it's essential. Use smoke, sound, breath, salt, silence. Use whatever resonates with your spirit, but do it with intention. Speak to your energy as if it's listening, because it is. Say, I release what is not mine. I call back all parts of me across all time and space. I seal my field with divine light. Say it out loud. Say it until you feel it. Energy responds to intention made audible. Your voice is a wand. Use it. But cleansing is only half the process. The real power comes in sealing, in creating a boundary around your energy that is not built from fear but from reverence. This is not about being closed off, it's about being sovereign. It's about choosing who and what gets access to your field. Imagine your aura like a temple. Not everyone gets to walk in. Some people only belong at the gates, others outside the walls entirely, and only a sacred few are allowed into the inner sanctum. You get to decide, not based on judgment, but on alignment. Your field is sacred. Treat it as such. And finally, the most overlooked part of energy reclamation: joy. Real, embodied joy. Not the kind you post about, the kind that fills you without reason, the kind that makes your cells dance. Why? Because joy is the highest sealant. It is the frequency that fortifies your aura faster than any ritual. When you laugh, create, play, move, sing, you raise your vibration so high that low energies simply cannot enter. They bounce off, they dissolve, they fade. So if you're doing all the spiritual work but still feel heavy, ask yourself, when was the last time I allowed myself to feel pure, unapologetic joy? Reclaiming your energy is not a one-time event. It's a way of living. It's a commitment to being radically honest about what drains you and what feeds you. It's a discipline of choosing alignment over approval, of choosing solitude over fake connection, of choosing embodiment over performance. Every day, you are either feeding your power or fragmenting it, and the world doesn't need more fragmented lightworkers. It needs whole ones, embodied ones, ones whose energy is so clear, so sealed, so rooted in truth that they become untouchable, not because they're guarded, but because they're aligned. Let me ask you something only your soul can answer. What would your life look like if your energy was fully yours again? If every ounce of your power, your focus, your intuition, your creativity was no longer leaking but flowing back into you, not just for survival, but for creation, for expansion, for embodiment. That is not a fantasy. That is your next level. And it begins the moment you decide to reclaim what was always yours. The final shift, becoming the version of you that no longer repeats the past. There comes a moment on the path, a quiet, undeniable moment, when you realize you cannot go back. Not because something external stops you, but because something within you has changed permanently. You've seen too much, felt too deeply, awakened too completely. And in that moment, The version of you that once tolerated the cycles, that once settled for the drain, that once mistook pain for purpose, begins to dissolve. Not overnight, not in a dramatic revelation, but gradually, gracefully, sometimes painfully. This is the final shift, not into a new mindset, but into a new identity. And once you step into it, you don't just break the cycles. You become someone who no longer creates from them. You see, most people try to change their lives by forcing new behaviors while still identifying with their old patterns. They want new results but refuse to release the version of themselves that was aligned with the pain. And so the cycles repeat. Because energy doesn't lie. Who you believe you are will always dictate what you allow, what you attract, and what you unconsciously recreate. That's why this final shift is not about doing more, it's about becoming someone else. Someone who no longer resonates with the frequency of the old life. Someone who no longer finds comfort in chaos. Someone who no longer needs to be drained to feel alive. But here's the paradox. To become that version of you, you must first grieve the one you've been. You must mourn the patterns that once protected you, the roles that gave you purpose, the wounds that once made you feel special. Because even pain becomes an identity if you wear it long enough, and identity is powerful, it shapes your reality. So before you can fully embody the self that thrives in peace, in power, in purpose, you must let go of the self that knew how to survive in dysfunction, not with judgment, but with reverence. That version of you got you here, but it cannot take you further. So what does the new version of you look like? They are not perfect, they are not always high vibe, but they are sovereign. They don't chase what drains them, they don't explain their boundaries, they don't apologize for their light. They don't shrink to keep others comfortable. They walk into rooms and shift energy without saying a word, not because they're trying, but because their presence is aligned. They no longer seek to be understood by those who are committed to misunderstanding them. They no longer confuse empathy with self-abandonment. They no longer wait for life to give them permission to be who they already are. And most of all, they remember. They remember why they came here, what they carry, what they're here to awaken in others. They remember that their energy is not just for themselves. It's for the collective. But they also know they can't serve the world by betraying themselves. So they stop pouring into what doesn't pour back. They stop explaining their magic to people who don't believe in it. They stop leaking their light into timelines that no longer hold their frequency. This is the final shift. It's subtle, it's sacred, and it changes everything. Don't fight the cycles anymore. You simply rise above them. You don't explain your growth, you embody it. You don't wait for the world to change, you become the change that makes the old world irrelevant. So I ask you now, from one chosen one to another, are you ready to stop repeating the pain and start remembering your power? Are you ready to become the version of you that your ancestors dreamed of and your future self already knows? Because the portal is open, the invitation has been sent, and the only thing standing between who you've been and who you're becoming is a choice. Choose now, choose fully, choose you.